So good to
Hi,
have
everyone.
you here.
Thank you for
Now,
having me. I'm sorry I'm a little bit late.
no worries. I mean, I was talking to our style director about his childhood experiences in journalism to bridge the
You
gap.
fill in.
Now, thanks for making it. I know you have to fly out to London quite soon, so I'm very happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
I mean, you, as everyone in the room knows, you're one of the leading fashion designers in the world, and you've turned your brand into what they call a global powerhouse. Is that right? You don't think so?
Did you say global Can you
Yeah,
hear
that-
me? Okay.
Doesn't come as a
Say
surprise.
that again.
Okay, do you want to hear it again?
Say that
I can hear
again.
it here. She's one of the leading fashion designers in the world.
It's ridiculous. Wow. I'll take it. You know,
Yeah.
I don't look at it in that way, but I'm totally happy to take it.
But you also, I mean, besides the success of your brand and the work since you launched the brand in 2001, together with then the Gucci Group, today Kerrang Group, you're designing for women and men and kids, and you're doing a very successful sports collaboration with Adidas. But besides that, you're also known for being a lifelong vegetarian and being very active in not using fur, not using leather in your products. And I was wondering how you actually grew up with, you grew up with vegetarian parents, which was at the time in the 70s and 80s a very rare thing, right? I mean, I read a story that when your mother, Linda, who was a vegetarian, was about to publish, or she was going to write her first vegetarian cookbook in, I think, 1988, 1989, someone told her from the book industry, well, you can, but you have to add some chicken in the recipes. Because that's the only way how you can sell a vegetarian cookbook.
Yeah, I mean, you know, my mum and dad were very early pioneers of a different approach, I think, to just living and coexisting on the planet with creatures. You know, I think I was brought up on an organic farm, and
Was it called Organic Farm at the time?
it wasn't called organic
Yeah.
farm, but it was an organic farm. It was one of the first organic farms in Britain, actually. And so, you know, I feel very blessed and very lucky to have sort of swam in the soup of that kind of upbringing. You know, I'm very lucky. And of course it informed and had an impression on who I am today and how I conduct myself both at home and in life, but also in my business. But yeah, you know, it was definitely not the norm. And we were sort of ridiculed. A lot of people met with a lot of anger being a vegetarian and just not wanting to kill animals and sort of questioning that and just having a point of view that maybe wasn't something that people felt great about, you know. And you know, so taking that into the fashion industry and into the luxury section of fashion, again, is not the norm. And
why not, by the way? I mean, I was thinking about, I mean, you've been doing it, you've been proving that you can be very successful, economically speaking and aesthetically speaking, by not using those materials. Why are you still one of the few rare exceptions in the whole business?
I just think that, you know, for whatever reason, we have ended in industry. We've arrived at a point that it's not the norm to be mindful or responsible, or, you know, we don't feel we can easily have a conscience as a consumer. We feel we work for the people creating the product rather than the other way around. And we've just arrived there. You know, it's normal for us to eat food that's wrapped in virgin plastic. Like, these are just everyday things that we've arrived at this place. And fashion's no different, you know. And I think it's not as, and because of that, it's obviously not the easy way out. You know, like you make reference to my mum's cookbook saying they needed to put chicken in. When I first started and not working with leather or fur or PVC, you know, it was people just didn't know how to create a business based on those kind of, on that different approach. And the only way to show people that it's allowed and that it could be the modern approach to the fashion industry is to show people that you can also have a business that is sustainable as well as, you know, a mindset that's sustainable. To show success, I think, is the way to lead that.
You already mentioned that you grew up on a farm with your parents and your siblings. And I read a story somewhere, and I don't know if it's true, I'm going to ask you, that you were sneaking in your father's wardrobe at some point, especially at the studio, at the live stage costumes of the Beatles that he was wearing on stage. Is that true?
Yeah, no, I'm really lucky actually. My mum and dad kept a lot of their clothes. And so when I was younger, the wardrobe that I had access to was more, it was a mix actually. And I think it's been a big kind of part of my design process, the balance between normal life and normal clothes, everyday clothes, and then sort of stage attire. And that was always present for me. So when I was really young, we were on a farm and it would be jeans and, you know, normal clothes for living on a farm.
Right.
And then the other side of the wardrobe was like rock star wings and Beatle suits and kind of, you know, platform boots, glittery kind of.
What was the first time when growing up on a farm and suddenly seeing your father being on stage with, you know, maybe 60, 70,000 people in the audience and wearing a different costume, not jeans and
t-shirt? You know, I think it's a weird kind of balance that I had in that aspect. I grew up as a child going on tour, and then we spent a long period of time not going on tour. So when I was about 18, we went back on tour, and it was strange to see...
We, the family.
The family, yeah.
Yeah, and the band.
The royal we. Yeah, it was strange to have 200,000 people looking at my mum and dad. It's a bit odd.
I can imagine.
A bit like sort of X amount of people looking at me. I mean, I'm glad my children aren't in here now. They'd be like, why are you all looking at my mum? How weird is that? I'm basically repeating, well, not to the extent.
No, but you were 13 when you did your first piece, like your first little...
I was 12.
12,
when I did,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, but I knew I wanted to be a designer very early.
From that age on?
From earlier, I knew I wanted to be a fashion designer. I think I was doing kind of I did work placement when I was 15, and then I designed my first things when I was sort of 12 and made them.
Because being a fashion
I'm lucky
designer,
that I knew what I wanted to do.
Right. I mean, growing up on a farm, and although in on that very special farm, but becoming
Special farm.
But why do you think you wanted to become a fashion designer? Because you were surrounded by musicians and music.
Crops, arable fields.
Right.
I think that I grew up. Look, I had a sort of opposites in my life, and it's big in my collections, the opposites between masculine and feminine and sort of wearable day clothes and then more sort of aspirational clothes. The opposing elements are very present in how I work. And growing up, I was surrounded by opposites. And I knew at the core of it all, I was surrounded and brought up in a creative environment. So I knew that I wanted to go into something creative, and I knew that I didn't want to go into the same industry as my parents because I felt that would be a little, just for many different reasons, it wasn't what I wanted to do. So, I thought about landscape gardening, I thought about being a florist, an interior designer, but it was fashion design. I just wanted to be a fashion designer. And
you got an internship when you were 15 at Yves Saint Laurent, and Yves Saint Laurent was still there.
Yeah.
What was he like?
Well, he was a mate. I mean, he's Yves Saint Laurent. It's like the dude of all dudes, You're
the first person describing Yves Saint Laurent as a dude.
Total dude.
Yeah.
I mean,
what
I can't
kind
believe
of
I
dude?
met Yves Saint Laurent, It's kind of, how old am I, by the way, now? I must be really old. I was only about 4 when I met him.
Now you're here in Berlin because of the Designer for Tomorrow award, and I think today it was announced, the winner was announced.
She's here.
Where is she?
I see her.
Want to welcome her on stage for a minute. Welcome. Congratulations. Why did you choose her work?
Awkward. You have to. It was a collective decision. That wasn't just me on the panel. We all had, we all came together in the choice of the winner. I think that your work was just a great balance, again, between the sort of what's happening now in fashion. It's very relevant. I personally loved the use of material and masculine and versus feminine. There was a sense of humor that I always think is important in fashion. And just the kind of the attitude. And I also feel that in talking to you and meeting you, you have an interest in pattern cutting and in sort of the heritage of fashion, and I think that's important. I think it's important to have a grounding in some reality, and I think that your work, although it's extreme, you can see the the ability to bring it back into wearability.
What's it like hearing those sentences from Stella McCartney?
I'm speechless. Yeah, I'm speechless again, the second time this day.
So we're happy to have you here the second time, dear Speechly. Thank you so much and congratulations again.
Thank you.
Now, I mean, you grew up on a farm, that's what we've learned today, but you live in London, your business is based in London. What on earth happened since last summer with England and the Brexit and all this? Can you explain?
I can't. I'm not sure I'm the best person to explain. I think we all know what's happened. Do you want me to say what? You want me to go into? The thing is, it's funny when people ask me about sort of something that's slightly more political. For me, I have my own personal beliefs. I'm not great in sharing them publicly because it's not really my intention. The public side of me would rather talk about things that sustainability or something environmental,
which is politics.
Creating business.
Which is politics, right? I mean,
yeah, that's my personal political take on what I'm very happy to be vocal on publicly. Or just talk about fashion design in general. When it comes to sort of broader political statements or points of view, I rather keep them for a dinner table than share them with a room full of complete strangers, quite frankly. Sorry about that.
Well, we've got to know a few things about your life by now. I've started writing a daily newsletter, and I asked the readers if they have a question for you, and I picked just one because we're already running out of time, as I'm hearing in the background. There's a big fan of yours, Vesna Perez, and she said she loves what you do, and especially with all the sustainable materials that you work. And the question is from her is, how do you make sure the production sides are treated correctly and the people are treated the way they should be treated? And are you planning a recycling collection?
When it comes to humans and how we treat humans at Stella McCartney, we have a very stringent method of testing the supply chains, and we're constantly bettering ourselves and just making sure that we have a very transparent code of ethics and rules that we adhere to. We work every day. We are... the thing I find about the fashion industry, it's very old-fashioned, and the methods in which things are sourced and made, it's just been going on for hundreds and hundreds of years, and I think now is the time to question that, how you treat people, how you treat the planet, how you treat the animals, and it's all connected for me, that approach. So at Stella McCartney, we are constantly investing time and money into the process of development. So, we just spent 3 years, for example, developing a viscose, viscose is used massively in fashion, and I don't know if any of you know where it comes from. It's basically from trees, which they're not sustainable forests. So we spent 3 years sourcing a way to get them from sustainable forests. We use regenerated cashmere. Cashmere is very harmful to the earth. It's not none of the nutrients go back into the soil. It's very harmful to the cashmere goats. And so we spent many years finding a way to use regenerated cashmere, which is all of the cuttings, all of the stuff on the floor, and making something of it. We've just done a great project with Sea Shepherd, which is an amazing organization, and Captain Watson, where we've taken plastic bottles from the ocean and done recycled polyester from that and made bags. And so we're constantly, the biggest impact I have is not using leather. So not only is we're cruelty free, but we're also not using land and water and grain in an inefficient way just for fashion. So constantly doing that. So, I can't even list them all, but for me, that's what I think makes us modern. That's what makes us a relevant and modern fashion house. And, for me, that's as important as creating modern and relevant fashion design. The two go hand in hand.
I think that's a great word for the end. It,
Oh, I wouldn't have got a round of applause talking about that 10 years ago. I would have got a ripple of laughter, probably.
was it like that? Was it like that? I mean,
Yeah,
10, 15
definitely. I mean, I had people, look, you know, it's just the way in which I wish to conduct my business, you know, and I've had people that have worked for me say, look, Stella, it's all good that you want to sort of save the planet, but you know you're never going to have an accessories business, don't you? Like, are you happy to have a cap point on your business
People
where
from
you're
the
just
industry,
not going to sell or make a certain amount of money? Which is good because I'm highly competitive, so I'm like, oh, that's good. I get a goal to prove you wrong. But you know, in America, for example, we export our non-leather goods to America, and we get hit with a 30% tax because they're not leather. Now, that'll be an ancient law. That's probably hundreds of years old and set in place to protect some kind of land-owning, cattle-grazing America. I don't know what. But
That's a kind of a political statement.
well, it's fine. That kind of political statement in connection to sustainability and fashion, I'm happy to have. But we don't put that on our consumer. We absorb that in our margin. And so those are the kind of things where you make sacrifices in business to just have a better quality of mindfulness in your workplace, you know. Right. But what's amazing is I find now I have young people coming that want to work at Stella McCartney because of that. And that's like a massive shift from when I started.
Because when you started, even becoming a fashion designer wasn't a really cool thing to do, right? I mean
not as a woman, probably. No, I think being a fashion designer was cool. I wasn't born in the 1800s. But
I
think it was cool
just shine the
back
light
then.
on me, yeah.
But it was less heard of as a woman, I guess.
Right. I mean, people are waving in the background saying that you have to run to the airport. So, yeah, I mean, we're all a little bit
Keep
sad.
them leaving more is always the philosophy.
So just one very last question. Is it a true story that you convinced your father to play Blackbird, to put it back on the concert on his list because it's your favorite song?
You listened to my Desert Island Discs, didn't you? Well, I think so. I think so. I mean, he might say no, but yeah, it was definitely, he didn't have it in his set list, and I am a massive fan of that song, and I sort of brought it to his attention. I like to think it's just because of me that people get to hear Blackbird.
Stella McCartney, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much.